beginning with the Heart Sutra. Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Peak Mountain, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, the Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of a lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times are relying upon the perfection of wisdom, and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi, said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Chizu jambe yala chaze lo Gangi lo de teni de Ninda nanda rase Chini de gu jishin se Niji toga le wanze Kanda sibi zara marim do tonge gisi Chozo gunla puji daze Yala chuju yang de song Chudara chedo nyemo nyemo Leji chado chezeje Mare mese dunge nyogo Chini chezere denam Dene taji saji tazi Yonde luzo jese tugu Chuda chuni gente Talun Mese Chambe Yang La Du Arabata Di Arabata Di Arabata Di Keji Kera Mese Talu Demo Membara Sene Kada denje shang lo do ba ye lo de pa be na wa se do se ye be ye chu shen me do da re ra le shi nin de yin ba de san je shen do me de be wa ye zhu gu nam da xin la ju ba xiu Tamba chinan ye chugu kala chinze dintene chidra sambe duje zemala sabji chuji chaba abdus rena mendela kane yadayami Chöla tsoji chonam la chanju padu tani gyabsu chi Tagi jisu jibi tsonam ji Chola penche sanji rupara shu Chöla tsoji chonam chanju padu tani gyabsu chi Tagi jisu jibi tsonam ji Chola penche sanji rupara shu Chödang zoji chonam la chancho bado dani gyabsu je Tagi jinsu jibi chonam je Chola penche sanji dhubara shu Alas Ta si je Yadang jumi tu Otirisha Tadela ya Shera me para samde yume des Samde me para yani shera me Kanla dini yuebe sipa yi Gyazu nakchi taburu tsewara jis Odisona sha Tejik surana king
Last one. Verse 107. Without discriminating awareness, there can be no mental stability. Without mental stability as well, there can be no discriminating awareness. But anyone having both of them will be able to make the ocean of compulsive existence, their compulsive existence, in other words, like a puddle in the hoop print of ox.
Alas Tade 가르송기 열었으나 아니 학동기 달 학동 실라 송지기 딩이 지게야래야 아니 시내다 학동이 송도 되고와 보다 시내다 학동이 송도 돼야기 시내기 삼den기 가서 그래 심지집에 삼den 대다 아니 심지집에 삼den 되게 유도 지야기 유동반이 디니디 아니 가서 그래다 냠도 영야라야 뭐라야 가르요 그랬으나 삼den 두고 봐 삼den도 두고 봐 뭐라 시내 두고 봐 안에 시내 두고 유자 안에 시내대 당보 퇴바지 되네 당보 퇴중기 시랍지 되네 삼중기 시랍지 되네 안에 꿈중기 시랍지 그거 유자 안에 도세 다시 내대 도서 두고 그 유자 안에 신의 코란야 신의게 셈 두비아 코란야 시럽라 되네 두고 그 유자 퇴중기 시럽 삼중기 시럽 kumchungi sherabla tenje shine dhugugu yuza shine de tangpo wata tendes dhugugu yuza ane sherab me para 아니 something sim 지지비 띵이지니 요 말에스네 다 식제 당보대 대송샤
So the first verse here, it begins without the lacking wisdom concentrations, wisdom, then the concentration fails. So what that really means is it actually talks about how one can achieve or develop this union of shamatha and vipassana. In other words, union of shamatha and insight. How we can cultivate or how one can develop this quality within one's stream of being. So, so what is really meant? What this first line actually, emphasizing is to that one's mental stability or the meditative absorption or tingejin, which is also translated in English as a concentration. And it's just observe concentration. It's not something we should not think of the concentration some kind of like forceful, you are forcefully, concentrating on some kind of stuff. But this is not what is meant by concentration. It's just observe concentrations, or it is meditative concentration, or the meditative absorption, in other words. And this meditative absorption is needed in order for one to attain or to develop wisdom which understand emptiness, right? Again, here, the very development of one's meditative absorption again depends on the wisdom, because it requires in order for one to develop this meditative absorption, one need to first listening, or the te sam gum, which means one need to first listen, and having listened, one need to contemplate on the meaning of whatever that you have heard spoken by the teacher, and then this will then be followed by meditations. In other words, it is by listening, one develops what with the wisdom of listening. Then the next is the wisdom of contemplation, will then finally lead to the wisdom of meditations. And those wisdom, listening, contemplation, and meditation wisdom will lead oneself to achieve the genuine level of, in other words, the final level of what we call the meditative absorption, meditative absorption. With this, then one will be able to attain or to develop wisdom realizing emptiness. So therefore, the first line it means is that it's the lacking wisdom, concentration fails. So one's concentration should be derived by those three kinds of wisdom. Yeah.
알았어. 보다 대강게 다 실험해봐 3대 유면에서 지당 대 신내당 학동이 군대 손대 좀 발라야 아니 학동스도 실업체 다 실업대 개발이야 아니 신내 심지집에 신내 3대인데 고래스기 여러 이나양 단다 되나라야 실험해봐 3대 유면에서 돼 실업대 아니 다 내가를 바꾼도 배 실업스네 면도 군주도 배 실업 퇴선 곰숨기 실업대 매버 삼대 유마레스테 타제라 타디 지오기 시지에 데라야 아니 삼대 매바 양네 실업 매 세르와 데데 삼대나 삼대 매버사데 심지집이 신내되체 심지집이 신내되체 어디 매나 아니 가서 그래 실라 순리기 동반이라야 아니 젠조고 거네 냠바르 쪽에 실라 송되기 아니 셰럽디 요마레스 실라 송도 제주기 아니 셰럽디 지기 마레스르바 어디 인도 좀발이야 군이 준대체 심지지비 띵인진디 매나 아니 대오기 동반이 하버도 통해 셰럽디 요마레스 어디 제장 군이 준대체 어디에 송도 좀발이야 어디들이야
That's all. So here we must understand that when we talk about the first line, when we talk about the lacking wisdom, concentration fails, which means the wisdom that we're not talking about the wisdom realizing emptiness in this context. Here, the wisdom here refers to the wisdom of listening, wisdom of contemplation, wisdom of meditations. So this is what is meant by wisdom. Without this wisdom, concentration, one will not be able to develop meditative absorption, in other words. So this is the first line. That is what is meant by. And the second line, what it says, and without concentration, wisdom too, it says. So then here again, when it comes to the without wisdom, concentration, without concentration, wisdom too. So that means without concentration, the wisdom is not possible here. So now in the second line, when we talk about the wisdom without concentration is single-pointed meditative absorption. And then the wisdom in this line, the wisdom here refers to the wisdom realizing emptiness. Okay, so wisdom realizing emptiness, or the wisdom which is also known as the insight into the nature of reality, and single-pointed concentrations are, has a causal relationship. Okay, wisdom realizing. Second line, when we talk about the without concentration, wisdom too. So in this concentration and wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness and single-pointed absorption, single-pointed meditative absorption. These two are the causal. These two has a causal relationship. Single-pointed concentration, single-pointed meditative absorption being the cause, and wisdom realizing emptiness being the result. So this two has causal relationship. Okay, so now when we talk about the wisdom in the second line and the wisdom at the first line are the different kind of wisdom here we are talking about. The second line is the wisdom which understands emptiness, and the first is the wisdom derived from listening, contemplation, and meditations. That's all.
Las oda tende cherwa te gandele ya jingmen do de pa drup te drup sa ne te jela ya ane kare chevre sarwa khangla sudida ne joba sinanda da ji tende gi lamlo tugi gi khangsa khangla ya teni sudi zambala ya teni de kare sina ane sim chiji bi sine dang te gi ngangne ane tongbani la jejo chigi gi sirap teni yebe 아니 시바이 있으라 되니 여나 아니 시바이 있으라 가사 강라야 아니 실라 손제기 띵이진데 여나 아니 시바 스튜디오 말아야 시바 코바데체 자주 스튜디오 말아야 다지 자주세야 데뱅가랑 쪽에 탐해봐지를 디 타다 띵면교를 세샤기로 와다 시바 코베 자주데 타다 띵면교 텐데지체와 아니 자주시 시바디 코바디 자주를 빼샤 나지 따부르 세버지 스디 점바라 나 스디 점발야 나란조디 팔랑트스기도 팔랑트스라 나 스네르바 제 스디 코 강지 데 나게 추디 아니 람상감도라 강지 코 마강바 딱바나라마지 딜라 공공지 세샤비나 티나라 추지로 샤비나 테 람상바 감도라 니마지라 바감도라 자주 친구들 된데 감도고 말아봐 어다 강사 강라야 심지집에 시내당 시내 디게간에 돈이라 하부로 통백이 실라 송쟁이 띵이 진팅이 연나 아니 시바 코베 갸조데 아니 레 하부제네 아니 팔랑기 강지 나길라 여기 추나신 파 깜볼람사 소도그레 에스네르바 따부로 세워라 기스데 좀발라 더불어서도 제가 그래 팔랑게 간지나게 추 더불어 추집 되버신도 아니 파 매봐서도 그래 세월에 예스를 봐 어디니 되자 나스
So then the second line, the third line, and the fourth line here says, so let's read again from the beginning. So without discriminating awareness, there can be no mental stability, which was referring to the meditative, single-pointed meditative concentrations, mental stability, he refers to that. And without mental stability as well, there can be no discriminating awareness, referring to the wisdom realizing emptiness, okay? Discriminating awareness. But anyone having both of them will be able to make the ocean of their compulsive existence like a puddle in the hoop print of an ox. So what this, last two lines of this verse actually talking about is, now, if anyone, the individual who developed this union of mental stability or the meditative absorption, so single-pointed meditative absorption, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. Someone who have developed such quality, the mental quality, can dry the ocean of samsara, the water of the ocean of samsara, just like when the sunlight and its heats dries out the puddle in the hoof print of ox. Even though when we talk about samsara, the ocean is something that is very vast, but so long as similarly, when we talk about the samsaric existence, it's not actually easy for us to actually get out of samsaric existence, right? We're unable to. It is not that easy for us to, transcend from this boundary of unenlightened existence. Yet it is, however, if one is able to develop this quality of mental stability, as well as wisdom realizing emptiness, due to the unity, due to the development of such unity of these two, one will be able to, transcend from this secular existence, secular existence as soon as possible.
알았어 다 되들려야 지지 되려셔 봐 지지 대 로마 템바 주시직 된 나서라 니메닌게 락숨 칸라바 대다남라 삼바르메지디 대이 로니 시브르지마 라스 지지디 딘데려셔 that's
So then here, the verse 108 here says, the kinsman of the son, referring to the Buddha, has declared that there are 14 questions for which he wouldn't specify an answer to the world. Whatever they are, don't think about them. A mind that is concerned about them isn't one that can pacify suffering.
다 대피지 대기 로마den게 따와 주시 땅에 주시셔야 돼다 야면은 징아랑 쪽이 당본에 로라야 연교기 로게 버리지 예면나 야면나 지 갑디가라야 남바 산지마 임바 두다 신다지기 안에 딘디지 땡기유나 로마denbe 따와 주시도 다딩아 야보지 하고 마서봐 데 로마denbe 따와 주시디 안에 가서 그래 따왕이 말에 대기 타와 투기 말에서 아니 니메니스도 다자도 봐 샤자도 봐기 아니 마 송버레스 송버델이야 아니 소소게 삼로다 송버 칸라 바세 게다나라 삼버메 지디스르와 타티지 루마기 따와 주시디 셈라야 냐네 대 따와디 냐네 따와디를 곰바 마치 있으라 마치 있어 가르레스나 대 곰네 루마기 땡게 따와 주시디 곰네 아니 대지기 말레스 가소래 대이 로네 시월 기말라스디 좀발야 루마 땡게 따와 주시 곰네 아니 랑기 삼로 난기 녀몽 바트도 시월 지기 말레스 어딘데 송샤
So here it talks talks about that the 14th questions for which he wouldn't specify answer to the world. So I'm not sure what kind of, I'm not very clear on this 14 unspecified question. But what this verse actually says is that this 14 specified question, if one have, even if one has an answer to this 14 unspecified questions, and if one contemplates on that, it will not bring about specification of one's mind. Because what the Buddha is answering the question or giving the teachings and assisting sentient beings is to pacify their mind and free themselves from the suffering nature of cyclic existence. So this is the method or the teachings that has been taught by the Buddha. But this 14 types of questions, unspecified questions, with no answer to this question, will have no effect in your mental continuum, in your there's no benefit of pacifying one's state of mind. That's all.
나스 다디 로마댕게 따와 주시 된건지 탈라 템바시 치메 탈라 템바시 냥엘레 템바 데발라 템바시 아니 로마댕라 템바 니스 첸데 텐데 주니도 다디 뭔지 탈라 땡로 땡단다 치메 탈라 땡도 땡단데 칸디스 땡게 예메 땡가라 다다 세보시야 멘도스시다
So the 14 the unspecified questions here we talked about is now here it says it's summed up in this commentary where it says the four that related to the past and that the self and the world are eternal, impermanent, both or neither, and four that related to the for the future, that the self and the world have an end and do not have an end, have both or not, or have neither, and that the two that related to both, the body and body related to the body and life is a given body alive, or is the body different from the life? So those are the 14 types of unspecified specified answer. The questions that has been asked to the Buddha, and so, but we will not going to go through the detail about those things. So, I'm just mentioning those are the unspecified questions.
올라스 가서 그래 텐데 연라 중니들이도 텐데 연라 중니디 마 삼주들이자 되네 마리팔레 레데 텔레네 남시 텔레 명당 수럽 중 텔레 끼지 투디 텔레네에서 당부 시제 시디 텔레샤
From the now verse 109, which is emphasizing on importance of understanding of 12 links of dependent originations. The verse here, here we read, from unawareness, in other words, ignorance. Normally, it's ignorance. Karmic impulse come forth. From them, consciousness. From that, name and form. From them, the cognitive stimulator and cause, and from them, connecting awareness, and sage has declared.
las oda de yela chunyi gi thoma de mari badirwa mari momba derwa kirin de yela chunyi gi thoma mari momba derwa ane mari momba tele kari chungburesina mari momba tele ane le sirwa ta de para la ya mari mombe wangi nyumong wangi le sagirwa ta de le de nyumong wangi le sa de yage zawa thusa mari momba la thu zang ane ko khasagore maripe wangi le silawra oya mari mombe wale ani niba le chungbure sirwa ani le tele ani sumban namshi chungbure kwazo gyunde ge wando chena sumban namshi de chungbure namshi le ani shiwa mingda su chungbure sirwa mingsu namshi le ani mingsu ge phungbu dhugurwa mingsu ge phungbu de la ya ani tele khari chungbure sina ani ngaba 계지 촉대 중브레스 계지 촉수들 미기 계지 나외 계지 쓰와 어디 계지 촉 중브레스 라스
So the 12, how this is orderly given in the verse itself. If we make it more lucid, the actual the order of those 12 links of originations. Here we will go through once again, but we'll just in a very lucid form, where it says, from ignorance comes actions, which is a volitional actions. And then from that comes the consciousness, right? Our consciousness. And so there's then the name and the form appears. From that arises the sixth sense faculties, or the source of perceptions, in other words. Sixth sense faculties refers to the eye, nose, ear, touch, and so forth. And then whence contact comes. That's it said that thus did the Buddha teach. That is what it meant. So those are the sequential order of how the 12 links dependent origination arises.
Alas. Ta 계지 촉래 아니 제가 중으로 대사 어쩌 자로
That's a law.
라스 다 다나 기지 조총네 안에 제바 중부로 제바 중반에 아 제발레 파지 제발레 중에 안에 소와디도 단용 숨 중부로 알레 다들로 산다고 제발레네 서로 근중디 서로의 실리 시바 중화주로 실리 렘바 깨와 주로와디 텔레 시바 실리 깨말라스
So then the verse 110, from contacting awareness, feeling of a level of happiness, originates. On the basis of feeling, craving comes to arise. From craving, and obtainer emotions or the attitude comes to develop, and from that, an impulse for further existence, and from an impulse for further existence, rebirth.
Alas. 텔레 디제도 was 도살아. 도르.
Then the mixed decision again and the marijuana ne nyomo go lesa and the lesa go get ko
tampa fijo
ko
jakba sesden ma chungur wa
the Ragban ma dande sikji kapsan job rema do deshe ke mashi
las oda wangbo thuk chungne wangbo thuk je la ya ane wangbo thuk yudu luji wangbo la soba tezo yudu ane penzu jakba de chungur serwa ane da rebale ane soba tidu 당뇨 솜 충분히 레버 중요한 소바디도 당뇨 솜 충분히 다 소바디도 당뇨 솜디 중요하기 텔레 아니 다 시바 세파스다 되자스나 어디 충분히 다 시바레 아니 렘발레 개와 주와 데스르와 렘발레 개와 중화레스 tele sipa sile kewa la serwa. Tele sipa sile kewa la yang tele sipa seba le lemba le sipa je ane sipa chungne ane shine kewa le ki yore serwa kewa le ki yore o tene sunsha.
So let's elaborate later on a little bit from contact is something that becomes important. So from contact, a feeling of happiness or suffering arises, right? And based on that feeling, there comes a craving, accepting something because one wants to be happy and rejecting others because one wants to avoid being unhappy. When craving, which initiates the acceptance of happiness and the rejections of suffering, increases greatly, then the grasping is born. Although in other words, the grasping arises. Then from that grasping, the capacity of revive habitual karmic tendency to take rebirth becomes very powerful and becoming will occur. From becoming comes the birth in the next life within the cyclic existence. That's all.
Plus. 다 근데 어다 개발스게 근데 이 링크 요래서 개발해야 돼. 근데 말이는 뭐야 전에 근데서네 안에 레 어딘데 전에 안에 마다 개발해야 돼. 두고 요봐. 다 개발 줍사베 쉬고라 안에 냥해체 안에 나와체 가와체 치와라 소바게 아체 안에 되네 되베 퐁바 되버제디 많이베 되베 퐁바다 안에 야한테네 마야 치와라 지구로와 텐데기 동에기 안에 동에 풍부 신도 체중대에서와 안에 텐데체네 개반에 송대 안에 동에기 풍부 첨부도 중벌했어.
So this is how samsaric life begins. In our samsaric lives are in other words, we have taken within this unenlightened existence as ordinary beings. We have gone through the process of all the strugglings of different originations, beginning from ignorance and volitional acts and so on and so forth. And finally, this then lead to, birth, which leads to, sickness, aging, and death. So right from the beginning of the birth, as long as we are taken rebirth within this unenlightened existence as ordinary beings, our birth is driven by our karma and delusions. We are subject to undergo sufferings right from the birth. As we know that as soon as we have given our birth, and there's the sickness follows, which then leads to aging and death.
Alas. Kewa kabe tigun kapar gyurusirwa. 다 kewa kabe tigun kapar gyurusidi kewa mena ane nawada chiwada ane dewe phombada chipowala soba ane dungege phumbu chimbote pha gadu gore esirwa. 다 de kadula kewa gana sumburwa 다 de gaya de zorabode kewa gabala ya ane silin sibasum gagu yore sibasum gabala ya ane kasore chorba gagu yore chorba gabala repa gagu yore ane odinde chende da ige marikba sabaya gagu ro tsawa marikba de pa ga neba chagu yore.
So now the next line, that when the rebirth occurs, the similarly great mass of suffering will have arisen, such as sorrow, sickness, aging, developing of what we desire, and fear of death. And but by stopping rebirth, all of this suffering will have been stopped. So now the first two lines actually talks about how it talks about the sequential order of the dependent 12 links of dependent originations. It is because of this 12 links of dependent originations, the sequential order, how sentient beings are taken rebirth within this cyclic existence, and how sentient beings are uncontrollably taken rebirth due to this 12 links of different originations. But if this is again, how do we reverse the nexus? How do we reverse this taking rebirth within the cyclic existence? Is now it by stopping is right from the beginning. And again, if one reversing this, if one is able to reverse those cyclic existence by stopping one by one in a reversal order, and this is how we can free how one can free oneself from this cyclic existence.
알았어. 다 되네. 다 된지야라 주니 된지를 샤네. 된지야라 주니 된지를 샤네. 다 되네. 대송샤. 아, 지지 자도 주지버들이샤 땡진 대화 중디 대화이 송기 죄기 제바 사모데 강기 되네 양다 통화데 산지 되니 직바 남초 통스 라스
No, so then it says the verse 112, the dependent arising, the most cherished gem in the treasure of the triumphant ones, proclamation is profound. Whoever sees it correctly sees the Buddha and the supreme knower of reality.
라스 어디 시제되게 돈다데 안에 땡진 대화 중화 하세요. 땡제세요. 땡진 대화 중화 해야 되다. 데려와. 아, 가서 그래. 랑신 매배 나라야 랑신기 두버 뒤서 매바 타게 나네 아니 자제다 겐가 담지 그 남샤 아니 자마자 주마냐바 샤투스나나 아니 땡제게 된도 통보로와 땡제게 된도 통보로와 대만 임바체 아니 제가다 자제기 남샤도 샤용도 아니 랑원의 두발라 수진용 그러와 아니 야 랑원의 두바데 파카도 점발아야 겐가다 자지게 남샤도 샤마신 바제 텐데 바지었나나 아니 데려봐 가서 그래 동바 텐제게 된다 텐제 동배 되는 마통으로 봐 어다 산지 좀 된데게 텐데 많이 바지 동바 텐제다 텐제 동배 되는야 통제라야 군이 찌기 개와 매매 맞에 찍조了찍송와 통제라야 텐제 동배 된다 동바 텐제게 되는 통상 안에 산지 좀 된데게 텐제게 되는 삼모 텐제게 다 텐제 되어주마게 송디 마 송버와 송마 송버와 어디 송디 산지 좀 된데지 송망보 여바 송 자수다고 여베 나기 안에 베디지 말아서 강변나는 잘라 망보 예비나 잘라 자치슈지 여바 되나라야 잘라 망보 요스 되는 잘라 자치슈지 여바 대난신 산지 준den니 송나네 송망보 예배나네 아니 집에 노브레디 제너레디 자치슈레디 가르레스나 아니 사모동반이들이 해서와 사모동반이 있으면 땡제 들어와 주고 송들이 해서와 어디들이야 다 특히 동부 소나
So here now, so within the treasure of, in other words, we can do it a lucid form within the treasure of Buddha's word. There's none so precious, so profound as this, referring to the dependent origination. Okay, and those who see the things dependently arise, do see the Buddha, perfect knower of truth. So now what it really says is now the reversal order of 12 links of dependent originations happens when one is able to see the actual nature of reality, or in other words, emptiness, non-inherent existence. So without which one will not be able to stop this troublings of different originations, but to undergo the suffering of the birth driven by the troublings of different originations. Now, how do we then understand in non-inherent existence of everything's an event? So one should understand that when we are, in other words, when we are establishing the conventional phenomena, such as birth, we talked about earlier, birth, sickness, aging, death, and so forth, we are unable to establish the non-inherent existence. Similarly, when we are trying to establish non-inherent existence of things in event, one is unable to establish conventional phenomena such as birth, sickness, aging, and so forth. So long as one's idea of this two becomes alternate, one has not gained a proper understanding of actual nature of reality, which enables us to, revolve within this cyclic existence. As a result of one's continual contemplation and meditation on those dependent originations, at some point, when one comes to understand, at the moment that you understand the non-inherent existence, the very non-inherent existence, understanding of very non-inherent existence, not only it doesn't contradict to the conventional phenomena such as aging, death, and so forth, but it will become a complementary to each other's. When one gains such understanding, and one has gained the actual understanding of how things really are in the ultimate nature of reality, which then becomes an element for stopping the rebirth within this cyclic existence. 로소기나.
라스 오다 딘데기 산지기 송근나게 제베 답에 나자 치슈기 덴지 저거트베 되는데 안에 강사 관계 안에 대송대 되네 안에 베지 만노바체지 양타바 통화대 통경게 강사대 된다베 강사대 안에 산지기 송 산지기 대권한이기 링네 안에 마송 샤와데 마초 통계난게 안에 리바 초도 교바데 강사 초도 교바데 레스르와 산지 디니 리바 남초 통스.
So the most profound teachings Buddha has given is, emptiness and, interrelationship between emptiness and emptiness and in other words, ultimate existence and the conventional existence, conventionality, in other words, ultimate and conventionality. So it says, whoever sees these precious teachings, the profound, precious, so precious, so profound, whoever sees these profound teachings will see the Buddha, in other words. And because if you can sum up, if one can ask the question to oneself, which is the most profound teachings of the Buddha, one can, without any hesitation, one can answer this question by saying the teachings on the ultimate nature of reality is the most profound teaching given by the Buddha.
야, 딘데 송장 다 단내마 방르디 집이나 여기 나기 단단한 저기 시제 가마디기 안에 디다 가서 그래. 신라기 유튜버체, 신라기 유튜버 대체. 신라스는 다 대상말로 데려봐. 어, 가서 그래. 통람기 유로봐. 통람기 유로봐. 안에 다 통람기 유무래데 다 뭐서래데 안에 신라숭지기 띵이진데와. 어디체 신라숭지기 띵이진라 되네. 안에 통람 도그래 제로봐. 다 통람데 도바들이야. 안에 통람데 토소나나 안에 산지 좀 된디지 숭외 숭긴나기 제비 그나 저나기 제비 사모 동반이 땡쟁이 전도 통야데 가사 수교 통선나 안에 대베디 산지기 숭배 대권은이 통계는 게 초들이스네 어딘지 지레샤스
So right from the beginning of this verse, 106 with sort of 107, we read up until now, 112. So if you summarize this, it actually talks about first it talks about how do we, prepare ourselves to be able to, develop the, path of seeing. What kind of causes and condition that is needed, what kind of element that's the pivotal element that is needed for one to enter into the path of seeing. So there it says importance of developing single pointed meditation or the single pointed meditative observations, and as a result of developing and perfecting one's single point meditative observations will then eventually lead oneself to understand actual nature of reality, which is emptiness. When one's understanding of emptiness and single point meditative observations become unity, integrated, character of this when these two become integrated, then that is the point where one has actually reached the path of seeing. And when one is able to gain the path of seeing, one has then seen the actual treasure or the most profound teachings of the Buddha, referring to the teachings on emptiness of ultimate nature of reality.
야 아니 페이지 피리치에 데라 잠샤기 안 되지는 건 좋게 신다 시기 지난 게디 바까 제나 까샤기로 어디 봐 수로치스
Kena kasumangati xiao komaseo.
네 당아서 피리데 잠샤기 되지라 야 그런 게 신다 시야 있어 어디 봐 주구치기 있어 아니 디 맞아 디나라 데지고팅 치기로 어디 봐 가로나스
Let's okay. So now we will stop here our teachings, and then so we have. So Gisela is asking if you can please stop recording now.